You are being forwarded to the contact center coach.
This program is sponsored by Proponisi, where I'm the president and CEO. Proponisi is the Greek word for coaching. We provide SaaS technology to centers like yours. Most contact centers struggle with their people, whether it be overcoming monotony, attrition, or getting superior performance. Our solution makes it easier and cost-effective to get even more than you could possibly have expected from your front line. The result is loyal customers, engaged employees, and winning, provable, profitable results. You can reach us at proponisi.com.
Well, hello and welcome to my very first video podcast. This is Michael Tamer, and I am the contact center coach. And if you're watching this video, you probably know me because I've been doing podcasts, and we've done 74 of them so far. And you may be asking, why do we need to see you on video? And quite frankly, I'm not sure why you need to see me. And it's not all about me. It's about the fact that if you're listening to my audio podcasts, all you're hearing is just me. They're 15 to 20 minutes, and they're completely focused on the contact center. And as you know, if you work in a contact center or are contemplating being in a contact center, we have to create, delight, and retain customers. We have to do this thousands, if not millions of times with quality, with entry-level employees that are usually the lowest level paid, and there's a massively high turnover, and we never know when the customer is going to arrive or when they're going to leave. So it's complicated and it's difficult, and leadership has challenges. So my podcast is all about doing that. The downside of my podcast is that you never get to hear from anyone else. It's just me. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go find really smart people to talk to, and I'm going to do that in my video podcast. So all of my video podcasts will be an interview with somebody that I think is smart and bright and someone that you need to hear from. And there's no one smarter and brighter than my very first guest. And I want you to know that I specifically asked him to be my first guest, and that is Brad Cleveland. So Brad, how are you? Great to see you.
I'm great. I hope I live up to all that, Michael, but thank you.
Well, so you're not even going to live up to it. The only reason that I stopped to say hello to you is because I'm now going to tell these people a little bit about you. And I didn't want you to have to just sit there in silence for 4 minutes as I went on and on, but you deserve to hear the stuff that I'm going to say. So I just wanted to give you a break so that you could smile and blush and do all the things that you need to do. So here we go.
Right.
So
I'll smile and blush.
Brad Cleveland is known globally as one of today's foremost experts in customer strategy and management. He's a sought-after consultant and speaker. I saw something in one of his training sessions that he's talked to 70% of the leading companies that provide customer service all across the world. He's the founding partner and former CEO of International Customer Management Institute. You probably know it as ICMI. He's an author. He wrote a book, Customer Contact Management on Fast Forward, which I think is in its 4th edition. And just last year, he wrote a book called Leading the Customer Experience. And it's probably easier for me to tell you all the places that he hasn't been on, but just to show he's been in the Wall Street Journal, Fast Company, U.S. News and World Report, Fox, MSNBC, NPR. He's won every award probably known to man in the contact center industry. He's an instructor on LinkedIn Learning, which I will ask him about when we're going through the podcast. Brad and his wife, Kirsten, have a grown daughter named Grace. They live in Idaho, but they spend a lot of time in San Diego, which we're just, I think we're about 45 minutes away right now in California. But you know what? Sometimes people, when they communicate, they'll talk about the fact that they'll read something off. But if you followed my podcast and you've listened to my very first podcast, you heard this. So I'm going to try with some technology and see if I can do this. But you heard this in my very first podcast.
Over the years, I've been in thousands of contact centers and have run across some pillars of the industry, names that you probably don't even know, but you probably should. Dan Hosage, Harry Newton, Jim Carragher, Bill Durr, Andrew Waite, Gordon McPherson. You probably have never heard of Gordon McPherson, but he actually mentored a young man by the name of Brad Cleveland. And if you don't know who Brad is, you should probably look him up online. You find out that he's probably one of the smartest people in the industry.
So there's a little street cred. So we talked about it. We talked about it ahead of time. So I have talked about you in my very, very first podcast. So another welcome. Great to have you on.
That's an awesome intro. Thank you. I am blushing. I am smiling. And this is so fun, Michael, because I learned so much from you back in those early days. You were out there, forging a path and writing some great content. I was just soaking it up. So thank you. What a full circle here.
It is a full circle. And you know what, if you don't mind, I'm going to jump right in. And, I talk to leaders, and, sometimes those leaders have been around for a while. And a lot of times they're people that are just getting started. So I am fascinated by it. Tell me, how did you get into this crazy business?
Yeah, a lot of serendipity and just kind of walking through doors that opened. One of my first jobs was with an interconnect company. I was the lowest person on the totem pole, and I ran cable. So underneath office buildings and hospitals, and it was hard work, down in crawl spaces. And I had this miner's light on, and little creatures would scurry by now and then. And my supervisors, they were a little rough around the edges, but in no uncertain terms, you had to get these cables right, or they could fail years later. So I learned through kind of the rough and tumble of it that, hey, the work you're doing matters. It matters, this communication economy that's taking shape. And that was kind of cool. I remember one day in particular, I actually got a chance to be above the ground floor. It's that old saying, you start your career on the ground floor. I just wanted to get back to the ground floor. I had that opportunity one day, and I'm wearing a collared shirt and in a customer's office helping install equipment, computer and telecom equipment. And I'd left fingerprints on their monitor, and my supervisor dressed me down. Like they've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on this system, all these months planning for it. And the first thing they were to see are your fingerprints. And I felt about this high, but I needed to hear it. And it kind of got under my skin. Like, this is customer experience. It's everything. It's all the engineering that went into this incredible system, all the design, all the planning. It's also, my interaction with them and how I left their office and the state I left things. So I loved it. I got into, I just read everything I could. Jan Carlson's Moment of Truth. And I met Dr. Deming, W. Edwards Deming, who passed away in '93, but met him in his later life, my very early career. And I met Gordon McPherson at a conference and had run into some of his work. And we ended up talking for hours. We went and grabbed lunch. He had a seminar coming up that he invited me to, and I attended that, loved it. And I got a call from him not long after that seminar. I was in San Francisco. He had one scheduled for Los Angeles. He's like, Brad, you expressed a lot of interest in this. Tell you love it. I've got an unusual question. I could tell he wasn't quite the same Gordon I was talking to. His voice was kind of weak. It's like, I'm in the hospital. I have a kidney stone, and it's bad. And they're not wanting me to leave, and this thing could flare up, and I just double over. It's painful. Is there any chance you'd go and teach that class in Los Angeles? And I, of course, said, I heard the word yes immediately coming out of my mouth. And then I hung up. I'm like, okay, got to get ready for this one. And it was a blast. The class was super forgiving. And we just, a lot of collaboration and sharing. And they were young contact center managers. And the whole space just got its claws into me.
That's awesome. I was in Gordon's very first training class that he ever held. He held it in Washington, D.C. And I was there. I heard a story. I love Gordon. I heard a story about Gordon. I don't know whether it's true or not, but I'm going to ask you the question, and I'm going to tell you what I heard, and maybe you've got a different answer. Where did the term call center come from?
So in the early 80s, there was something close. Jim Carragher or someone came up with telephone center or telephone call center. Gordon really gets the credit for call center. And if he didn't express it initially, he sure popularized it. I mean, this was going into first of events here and in Canada and Australia and the UK and elsewhere. And he pioneered so many things in this industry. And having him as a mentor and friend was just an incredible turn of event in my life. And I get credit sometimes for things at ICMI that he conceptualized and really pulled out of the dust before I came along, and just had so much to do with frameworks we used, and a line of thinking, and really professionalizing this space. So an incredible person, incredible friend.
Yeah. So the story I heard, which dovetails really well with yours, I heard that Gordon and Jim Carragher were in a restaurant or in a bar,
Right.
and they wrote call center down on the napkin. And I don't know whether Jim had the pen and the napkin and Gordon had call center, or Gordon had the pen and the napkin and Jim had call center. But obviously Jim Carragher Aspect named his product call center, the call center or whatever it was.
That is the true story. I'm remembering now. Yeah, those guys together really popularized that term. Jim Gordon, or someone may have had, anyone listening that knows otherwise, jump in. But
there's only so many. That was back when dinosaurs were roaming the earth. So we're talking early. We're talking early inception there at that point. So anyway,
but you're right. I remember that story now. Yes, and that really is my understanding of how it came about.
So I want to talk about what you're doing today, and then I want to get a whole bunch of advice from you. But I want to know what you do, and give you an opportunity to share with people what you do. So tell me about, what does your day look like? What's a day for you on a day that you're working and interacting? And tell the folks a little bit about how they work with you, and companies that work with you, and just a little bit more about what you do.
Yeah, that's great. Well, today's a weird day. I'm getting my office wired for fiber optic, a new company here in San Diego that is hopefully going to bring me up to a lot of speed today. So I'm excited about that this afternoon. But a normal day, it's one of four pillars, one or all of four pillars. I'm consulting, and that's been in person up to the pandemic, a lot of virtual since then, and probably a hybrid now. In person still important, but there's so many things we all learn that we can do virtually. So consulting, the clients in Australia, and a client in Sweden, and a few across the US here. I love consulting. It's the hands-on, roll up your sleeves, solve problems part of things. Speaking, conferences, and that sort of thing. That I love that. Online courses, which you mentioned, I'm working on two right now. That one is kind of fun. It's the contact center space gave me the inspiration for it, but it's managing customer queues. And LinkedIn Learning wants it to apply to anyone. So think TSA, the grocery store, the freeway, any place there's a queue. And when you see the supply chain, the whole world's getting a lesson in supply chain problems right now and queues. So I'm super excited about that. So online courses, and then writing. I love to write, and thanks for mentioning the books. That's been a lot of fun, and really has forced me to think through and codify what are we trying to say, how do we make it clear. And I love it's hard work, but I love writing.
I saw a picture of you. I assume it was posted somewhere, that a picture of a woman that had read your book and had the opportunity to get a picture with you, and say, hey, listen, this is the dude that I learned contact centers from, or call centers from, and here he is. I get to take a picture with him. So that must be gratifying when you talk to people that have read your book and applied it, and it's impacted their work life.
That's super fun. And I'll tell you, I stand on the shoulders of giants, just all those, including you and others I've learned from over the years. So when she was thanking me, she was thanking Gordon and you and a whole bunch of people. And there's no way I could have done that book on my own. It was really, truly a learning process.
Well, good. Listen, I'm going to put you to work now. All right. You ready?
You bet.
So
let's do it.
It's
got to be easier than running cable under buildings.
I'm a leader in the contact center, and what are the things I need to know? If I'm talking to Brad Cleveland, you're an expert. How do I get prepared? What are the things that I need to do to prepare myself to be successful as a contact center leader? And I'm going to take some notes too while I'm listening to you. So go ahead.
Boy, that's a great question. I would suggest do anything you can to actually sit in that chair and do the job, and that can be uncomfortable, and there's some training required and some things you have to go through, but actually handle customer interactions, experience that firsthand. And many new leaders have, so that may be a box that's already checked, but don't get too far away from that. Um, uh, Develop a community, your own community. It's pretty easy to do these days with LinkedIn and conferences and other sources. So you'll learn very quickly who's willing to share, and anyone in the space is. It's just a really giving community. I've always loved that about this space. Read, find the sources that are getting the good content out, not the sales pitches, but the good content on, what the principles really are. And they'll start to make sense. If you read enough, you can start to triangulate on what really works and what makes sense, and get close to your team. You're surrounded by smart people, and they're experiencing it firsthand, and realize that a lot of your time ought to be spent outside of the immediate environment. You're trying to create results, not run an operation. So get out there and get to know your colleagues across the organization.
So if as a leader, I mean, there's an expression, surrounding yourself with great talent, people that can pour into you. I was listening to your innovation message, and you were talking about the fact that, getting other people to create an environment where you can innovate. What sort of talent do I need around me if I'm a leader? We speak in terms of kind of roses, daisies, and weeds, right? There's kind of three different types of people, and roses are your best employees, daisies your middle, obviously your weeds are your poorest. You need roses in certain areas in order to be successful as a leader. Tell me the kind of people that you need to have around, and even some of the particular talents or skills or departments that are critical for them to be successful, so they can step back and look and say, okay, I'm okay here with Sally, not so sure George is the right person here, and Sandra, so tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, that's a great question. And leadership from a customer service perspective,
I'm really just kind of looking at the contact center. What does my team need to look like? Who are the bright types of people that I need around me? As an example, obviously, I'm pretty sure you're going to say workforce management is, you need to know these people really well. You need to know what they do, but that type of thing.
Yeah. So we need a whole bunch of skill sets, and they will come from a whole bunch of backgrounds. But I remember when I talked to Dr. Deming so many years ago, and I asked him, hey, what's the one thing you would change if you could snap your fingers walking into organizations? And here's a guy that had so much to do with the quality movement worldwide. And his answer kind of surprised me. It was one of his 14 points. He said, Brad, drive out the fear. A low booming voice, drive out the fear. And I stood there and I nodded and pretended like I understood, and I didn't. But over the years, I'm beginning to get it. And I've sat next to a ton of employees, different organizations, some my own over the years, and they'll say, if we could take the information from this screen and populate these fields, that'd be awesome. And I'll say, have you brought that up? Oh, no, I'm kind of new here. We got a team that does that. Don't let that slip through your fingers. So we need people who, and we've got to cultivate a culture around this. We need people who put themselves out there. They raise their hand when they see opportunities. They call things out respectfully and constructively, but hey, here's how we can get better. So that applies to anybody. And then we just need all the different skill sets. So yeah, we need workforce management. They got to kind of love math. There's some math to it. There's some queuing theory, forecasting and scheduling. We need those who are good at working across organizational boundaries. Or we need to be sitting with marketing. We need to be sitting with IT and helping shape those systems and helping shape those marketing messages, and really preparing ourselves for what's going to come in from a contact center workload perspective. So we need those kind. The quality space, which you're super close to, and really helped pioneer a lot of these things. We need that team. They've got to understand it's the content of what we're trying to do that matters most at the end of the day. Everything else is an enabler. All this communication, all this workforce management. So we need the quality team, and we need the supervisor role is so important. We need supervisors who are great with their teams, and they create a culture that that keeps everybody on board and engaged. And that frontline role is so critical. So that's one of the fun things about contact centers is all these different skill sets. It really is a diverse environment, one that's just super fun and engaging, given all different types of talent that we need.
Well, yeah, I mean, I keep saying that no one, when they're in high school or junior high school, what do you want to be when you grow up? Well, I want to work in a contact center, right?
Right.
So you end up having people that are going to be there for a season, and maybe they've got a future with you. Maybe they're, frontline rep's going to be a level 2, or going to be a supervisor or a manager, or maybe they're going to become, moving some other in training. But the majority of them have a desire to be a VP of marketing or president of the United States or an actor or an actress or something somewhere else. So you're seasoned with them, whatever it is. You need to make the most of it and get the most out of them, but you have to invest and be able to recognize that you're investing in their career, and they're of course, they're of course taking care of things. I tell people constantly, listen, the very worst employee you have is going to talk to more of your customers today than your most highfalutin marketing executive is going to talk to in a year.
That's a great
just
illustration.
Today.
That's right. Yeah.
So, what's the coolest thing you've seen in a contact center recently?
I'm saying that about every question, Michael. That's a great question, but it is a great question. I love the translation tools. I mean, you can carry on a conversation with someone that speaks a completely different language, and it's almost real time now, text or voice or whatever. There's such cool tools. So I'm loving that whole space. And we've got some clients in larger operations, government space, and others that have to serve a whole bunch of languages. And it used to be pretty clumsy in the past, being able to do that. Now it's pretty seamless. So I love that. I love to see great cultures, think of USAA or REI or someone that's just built such a great culture around their vision and how they're serving their customers. And you can, in the best organizations, you can see that come through in every conversation and every hallway conversation and every planning meeting. And they live it. It's real. It's more cynical and not so real in organizations that struggle. But I love to see cultures that are real and that really work. And just all the fun tools that are making data and analysis so accessible and so easy to understand. This shouldn't be the mystical arts or rocket science, or however we want to term it. For our colleagues across the organization, they should be able to see what we're doing and see trends and see data and understand it. What's that data trying to say to us? So some of the visual tools that are coming along are really, really cool.
Had a guy maybe 15, 20 years ago stand up at a conference and say that his contact center was the toilet brush of the company. And, and he was basically talking about, cleaning up everybody else's messes. And I just see how far contact centers have come because they really did think of themselves as the toilet brush. And sadly, there probably are some still today that think of themselves that way. But the reality is they really are at the front end of what's going on. And things have become so much more complicated. And just want to get your opinion on this, that back in the day, right, when someone would reach out to a contact center, it was pretty standard. The person on the phone didn't know as much as the person they were calling, and the person that they were calling kind of had all the information. Well, now when somebody calls you or reaches out to you, they may have been through every part of your organization, through every help file, maybe you had multiple different conversations with you, and they may know more about it than the person that's on the phone, this new person that's on the phone. So it's completely changed the transaction, because there used to be kind of a start, a middle, and a finish. And now the interactions are so much different, because the customer knows so much more, and they're so much more invested in what they've perhaps already done.
Yeah, that's right. And that's a great trend. We want that. The most effective call or contact of any kind is the one that never happens, because we built a better product. We cleaned up the darn user manual. We made some changes, so we're mitigating those calls in the first place. Then we've got automation, and we're all going to start out in search. We're going to do what we can to learn. And as you described, our most invested customers know they're using our products maybe as much or more than any of us are in their everyday everyday work or home environments. And you're right, they're experts. So we've got to have some pretty sharp people. And it's, if we were to drop in from Mars and start this whole thing all over, would we have this history of, these are more entry level jobs? Are they, is that working for us? And I think not. And I think the organizations that are getting the best results are viewing this differently. Like, this is our brand. It's our front door.
It seems like there's almost two types of centers. They're the ones that are doing everything in their power to keep you from talking to an employee, and the other ones that are obviously providing all the services and tools that they need, but wanting to be there to answer to answer it and to solve the problem and to take care of it. There still is I know you've been in them. I've been in some contact centers that look about as close to prisons as you can get. You can just tell there's no walking culture. Lot of financial pressure to do things, or they keep them back from doing many of the things that they want to do, and it's almost that toilet brush mentality. But but as you're talking, that there is a brave new world out there, and there's a lot of people that are already in the world and doing really well in it.
That's right. And it's a world that's available to anyone. And I'll tell you a quick story. I've mentioned this a time or two. So if you've heard this, forgive me, but I remember being in a consumer products company that, consumer products, think commodities. They got a bunch of competitors, spray cleaning products, that sort of thing, do much the same thing. And I visited their customer service center, and it was a dreadful operation. One notch removed from a prison, and no one wanted to be there. And they'd get these jobs just to get their foot in the door and go on to other parts of the organization. So then their new director was like, I could do about anything, and it's only going to get better. And I'm like, that's one very positive way to view this.
There you go. There's only one way to go, which is up.
Right. So we spent some time with their team, and I remember that first meeting, their arms are folded, and we just, I kind of prompted some questions. They're like, how's it going? And what do you like about your jobs? Or what, and it was a pretty miserable environment. Like, well, how can we make this more interesting? How can we make your work count more, more of a purpose for us, that we're moving the ball down the field. And one guy in the back, he's got his arms folded. He's like, we handle gripes all day. How valuable can that be? How much purpose is there in that? And their team decided to press in, including him, and question that afternoon. So we put some flip charts on the wall and started capturing some ideas they came up with. And one of the things they decided they wanted to do is really get closer to what are the drivers of this work. And they discovered in subsequent days, without a lot of analysis, that 11% of their contacts on one of their spray cleaning products was because the cap was hard to remove. So you'd buy it and take it home and force it off and shear off the nozzle. So, thank goodness for those customers that contacted them and said, I just wasted $7 on this. And they were able to make it right and send coupons, but they took that data to their packaging supplier or redesigned the cap, and those contacts went away. And they're like, whoa, that's cool. What else? And you can put a direct financial cost on that. The contacts you're avoiding, plus all the happier customers that don't run into that problem in the future. What else can we do? They're working with marketing on messaging. They've inspired a new product line that's in the multi-millions, top line from what they're hearing from customers. These are consumer commodities. If they can do it, anyone can do it. Think of all the different types of contact centers out there. If you can do it with commodities, you can add that kind of value. And the little bow on that story is their turnover's gone from second to highest in the company to second to lowest. Their engagement rate, maybe it's engagement rate, not turnover, but they're right in there. Yeah. Similar trends. They're super engaged. Their turnover's gone way down. They love their jobs. So anybody can add strategic value, and that's fun, because then we're right in the middle of, why is our organization here? What are we really trying to do to make a dent in the world out there?
So your conversation and the things that you're saying are inspiring. I can sense that there's probably some leaders out there that are listening, going, listen, man, I am so wrapped up in AHT and FCR and and people on hold and making sure people show up and adherence and all those kind of things. And you're talking about our impact, and I see that, but it's so hard for me to get from one to the other, right? I'm surviving, and you're talking about thriving, but that's really a culture leadership thing, right? That's the leader or leaders that have to open up that line of communication, open up that innovation, open up the ability for people to be able to contribute and see that they can actually make a difference. And they probably can, because they know a lot more, and you just got to open up and let them be able to talk.
Absolutely. And I'm so understanding and empathetic, Michael, of the challenges that so many are facing right now. When you see these news stories of bags stacked up in Heathrow, and the problems of the supply chain, the auto industry and electronics and grocery, anything, we got to survive today. I totally get that. But there's a great opportunity in that. And it won't happen overnight. You don't have to feel like you have to change things overnight, but you start really understanding that work and leading that process, and pulling your people in and really engaging them and understanding that work, and how we can make a difference with not only those customers we're serving, but the products and services across the broader organization. That's super fun, super cool. And the whole world's getting a lesson in, supply chain problems and queues and stuff that contact centers deal with all the time. And I think this is a good thing for us in the end. It's painful right now, but wow, we got to get this right. So I think it's a great opportunity for leaders, and one step at a time, just work, protect a little bit of your day every day to move the ball forward. You're going to take the marketing manager out to lunch and kick things around. You're going to visit your warehouse and ask him or her how it's going, and how the contact center can be more supportive. And you're going to take those steps to really move things forward with your colleagues across the organization. Build that in and protect it, and you'll see things happen.
Let's do some quick hits. What's the one thing that when you're talking to people you've seen over the years that even smart people miss, that they just miss? They should spend a little bit more attention. That might be a small change that can have a huge return. Give me one or two or three of those, and I'm not putting you on the putting you on the spot to come up with three, but
we can get lulled into running a contact center, and there's a bigger picture. So you mentioned AHT and service levels, even quality scores and CSAT and all that. That's important. The more important picture is, what are we doing to really serve our customers and help our organization understand our customer base, so that we're building a better approach to the world. So don't get lulled into the day-to-day. Keep your eyes on real results, not the operational stuff that are just enablers to those bigger things.
I'm sorry, go ahead. No, keep going. You got them.
Yeah, I think the other thing is just we can never get away from employee engagement as the driver of everything. So if we're so busy we never come out of our offices, and our teams are out there slogging away and don't see much of it, that's a problem. So we have to carve out that time.
Yeah, without a shadow of a doubt. I always tell people that employees need three things, right? They need a clear job description. They need the skills and tools to do their job, but they need a leader that has their best interests in mind, and that's really there for them wherever they are. And if they can get those three things, they'll perform for you. They'll blossom. They'll succeed for whatever your length or season is that you're going to have them for, and you'll be able to get the most out of them. What's the next big thing that's coming in contact centers?
That's a really fun question. I think a lot of folks would jump in and point to AI or data analytics or omni-channel or this or that. I think the bigger thing is an appreciation for how important it is in our customer experience ecosystem. That sounds like a lot of fancy terms right there. I don't mean to do that, but contact centers are more important than ever. I think we're going to get that. And we've, I've seen for three kind of generations of disruptions in the technology space. Predictions that contact centers were going to begin to diminish in workload and impact and all that. The internet came along in the 90s. The internet's been around since the late 60s, but the web came along in the 90s, and we all began using it, and that was going to displace contact centers. And then smartphones 10 years later, and then AI and machine learning today. 30 years of these cycles, and contact centers are more important than ever. There were pieces in the Wall Street Journal and New York Times this morning I glanced at on contact centers not working like they should, and we're all frustrated with that. So this is mainstream press in 2022, and it's going to be mainstream press in 2023 and 2033 if we don't get it right. So I think there's going to be a real recognition that contact centers are more important than ever.
So I only have two more questions for you because I know your time's valuable. So what do you do when you're not doing what you do? What does Brad Cleveland do when he's not working?
Oh, I love fly fishing. And they call it fishing and not catching in my case for a reason, but I love to get out there and just dry flies on the surface. That's, if you've ever seen a river runs through it, that's what I aspire to do. Love that. I love everything in the aviation world, and I'm more of a wannabe than out there doing it. I have a pilot's license, but I'm just not getting a lot of time to get out there and do it myself. So I'd have to get a check ride and go through a process to get current. Should I do that again? But I love everything about flying. I love the trends in aviation, and love kind of keeping my eye on old airplanes and how they're some of the historical airplanes. And I'll go to museums and take a ride every now and then. And I don't know, that just taking a walk and, hanging out with my family and some friends, that's probably what is top of the list.
Okay. And then my last question for you is, what question didn't I ask you that I should have?
Wow. These have all been really great questions. Ask me what's next for you and me. We've been in this space a long time. What keeps us interested? What keeps us excited about it? Can I ask you that one? Because you've inspired me for 30 plus years.
Well, you know what? This is supposed to be, I'm a coaster in this thing. I've been coasting just listening to you talk. So, I'm so inspired. I'm just doing a lot of stuff in employee engagement, and was obviously in the quality monitoring business, and then went into some consulting, and and started to do roadmaps and strategies, and really thought there was a disconnect between the supervisor and the agent. Just saw that, and this was turn of the century kind of time, and so realized, unlike you, I didn't want to be a consultant. It was not. It's not in my cards. I got to tell you, the number of people that I've made recommendations to that paid me a lot of money and just didn't do any of them just drove me bonkers. I just
that can happen.
Yeah, or they were just looking for a particular answer, and it just anyway. So but as I was out doing consulting, I realized that this constant pressure to reduce cost, just look for different ways to reduce cost, and fighting with their budgets, that was something people do. And the only way that you can do that is that you have to, as you have to stop doing things, or provide some sort of a different way for a customer to get that at a lesser cost, whether that's self-service or IVRs or bots or whatever it is. So anyway, I thought there was an opportunity to build a platform that was a little bit like a Reese's peanut butter cup, a little bit of chocolate, a little bit of peanut butter, right? So I kind of merged customer experience with employee engagement, and kind of built this platform that allows me to now get in and help leaders coach. My company's name is Proponisi, which is the Greek word for coaching. So I'm talking to people all day long about their culture, about their leadership, about how to engage their employees and keep them around longer, and holding on to their best employees, and innovative different ways to do that, whether it's gaming or getting customer experience words in the mouth. So I love call center. I love a call center. There you go. I should be saying contact center, right? Or Omni, whatever it is. I love the people that are in the business. I love the fight that they're in. I love coming alongside them, being a part of that fight. And then you know what? And like you, I've got history. I I remember Gordon McPherson. I know the things that he said and he did. I learned Erlang tables from him. And
Yeah.
so over and over and over again. And so, it's kind of nice to have, I mean, it's not nice to be old or have gray hair, but it is nice to have, 30 plus years in something where you kind of know it. And I love sharing that with people. And that's why I do the podcast. So now that I've answered it, you need to answer it.
That's a great answer. That's I won't even try to top that. That's great. I just say ditto. It's exciting though, isn't it? I love the whole, the omni-channel space we don't have quite right out there in many organizations. As an industry, we've got some work to do to really truly make it seamless for customers. Most leaders would admit that and say, yeah, we've got some work we need to do yet. Got some of those age-old resource matching issues still to get right. The employee engagement piece is huge. Customer experience, it's a term that didn't exist, but the concept's been around since the corner store days, forever. And I love that. I love that whole, I think it's been a very positive movement. We'll probably see another term come along and another movement, but the principles won't go away. So it's as exciting today as ever, and maybe in a different kind of way. Back in our early days, it was kind of that heady, wow, we're all kind of inventing a space and a profession, and that has had its own challenges and rewards. But today really it's a lot of fun, and there's really more opportunity today than ever, right, to be a leader in this space. So that's all fun.
Well, my hope is that the people that are watching this, you stuck around through the entire video podcast. And the person that I'm talking to today is I told you, he's just smarter than smart. His website is bradcleveland.com. If you're looking to bring somebody alongside that's smart and understands and has the experience in the industry, whether that be to do his training or to read one of his books or consulting, or to have him come speak in some sort of a way for your company or for your conference, this is the dude to do it. And I'm so glad, Brad, that you were first up. You know what? I'm feeling a little pressure now because I hate to only have one video podcast. So I'm going to have to create 75 of these so that you were the building block of something bigger. But I'm so grateful for the things that you've done in the industry. So grateful for your friendship. And thank you so much for being my very, very first video podcast. I love it. And I'm very, very grateful.
What an honor. Thank you. I'm grateful for the invite, and I'm grateful for the work you're doing, Michael. And I've learned from you from day one and come full circle here and still am. Thank you. Thanks for the great work.
If you've listened to my podcast, you know that I end every podcast the exact same way. And that is that you have the capacity to be a great leader, but it requires hard work and focus, and it requires you to bring somebody alongside you to help you. The gentleman that we just heard, Brad Cleveland, had somebody that he brought alongside with him, and that was Gordon McPherson, who took him under his wing. Either you need to find someone, or you're that person and you need to go mentor somebody else to help them be successful. I know you can be a great leader. Go make it so.